My name is Natalie Carter. I'm 31 years old, and I've spent most of my life being invisible in my own family. I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. My older sister, Vanessa, is 2 years ahead of me, and to my parents, she was everything. Every time she brought home a drawing, a trophy, or even a mildly decent grade, they acted like she'd cured cancer. When I came second in statewide science competitions, my mother would ask, "But who came first?" When I scored straight A's for 2 semesters, my dad just said, "Good. Keep it up." That was it. At first, I tried harder. I stayed up late studying. I joined clubs. I volunteered. I thought that if I just did enough, they'd notice me too. But they never did. All their pride, all their energy, all their money, it went to Vanessa. I still remember the day she got accepted into a private university in California. Our parents threw her a party. They invited friends, family, even neighbors. There were banners, cake, and speeches. When I mentioned that I wanted to go to Columbia University in New York, my dad laughed. "That's cute," he said. "But let's be realistic." They claimed they didn't have money to send me out of state. I believed them at first, until I overheard a conversation late one night. They had saved $80,000 for Vanessa's education, but nothing for mine. My mom said, "Vanessa has potential. Natalie's smart, sure, but she's not really cut out for that kind of world." I went in my room and cried. Not because they didn't want to pay, but because they didn't believe in me. I felt like I'd been erased from the family story before I even had a chance to write a line. That night, I decided I wouldn't ask them for anything again. I didn't say a word to my parents after that night. Not about college. Not about anything. I applied to Columbia anyway. I kept it to myself, filling out forms at the public library after school and emailing admissions during my lunch break. I didn't expect much. I just needed to know I tried. When the acceptance letter arrived, I opened it alone in my bedroom. My hands shook. I read the first line again and again until it felt real. "We are pleased to offer you admission to Columbia University." I showed it to my parents at dinner. My mom barely looked up. "You know we can't help you with that," she said. My dad didn't say anything at all. It was my grandparents, my mom's parents, George and Evelyn Morris, who reacted differently. I visited them the following weekend and showed them the letter. My grandfather took off his glasses, wiped his eyes, and smiled like I had just told him I'd won the lottery. He didn't hesitate. Within a month, he sold a small property they owned in Flagstaff and gave me $65,000 to cover tuition, rent, books, and food. "This is an investment," he told me. "You're going to make something of yourself." I moved to New York a few weeks after my 18th birthday. I didn't say goodbye to my parents. Vanessa didn't even text me. The day I boarded that plane, I stopped being their daughter in any way that mattered. And I was fine with that. New York hit hard. It was fast, cold, expensive. I rented a tiny studio apartment in Washington Heights and got a part-time job at a bookstore. My classmates wore designer clothes and had bank accounts to match. I wore thrifted sweaters and budgeted every meal. But I didn't care. I was exactly where I wanted to be. I studied like my life depended on it because it did. There was no safety net, no backup plan. Just me and the dream I refused to give up. By my second year at Columbia, I had built a routine I could survive on. I went to class, worked at the bookstore on weekends, and tutored local high school students in the evenings. I barely slept, but I stayed on top of every assignment. I couldn't afford mistakes. Not with the money so tight, not with my grandparents watching and hoping I'd succeed. I graduated with honors in investment management. No one from my family came to the ceremony. But George and Evelyn flew in from Arizona, holding homemade signs and cheering like I'd just won a championship. When I looked into the crowd and saw them crying, I knew that everything I had endured was worth it. After graduation, I landed a junior analyst position at a small firm in Manhattan. The pay wasn't great, and the hours were brutal, but I treated it like a stepping stone. I learned quickly, took on extra projects, and networked at every chance. 3 years later, I got an offer from Meridian Capital Partners, one of the top investment firms in New York. It didn't feel real at first. I read the email 3 times before calling my grandparents. I got it, I told them. My voice cracked. I got the job. At Meridian, I worked like I had something to prove. Because I did. I remembered every time my parents told me I wouldn't make it. Every time they compared me to Vanessa. I channeled it into 14-hour days, weekend reports, and perfect presentations. Within 2 years, I was promoted to senior portfolio manager. I bought a modern condo in Brooklyn Heights and paid for it in cash. I got myself a Lexus GX SUV, something I used to dream about when I was riding the subway home from night shifts. I started traveling London, Paris, Tokyo. And through all of it, I kept my distance. No calls, no messages, no updates to the people who had written me off. They didn't deserve to know what I had become. It had been over a decade since I'd spoken to my parents. Not a single call on my birthday. No messages during holidays. Vanessa and I hadn't exchanged a word since the day I left for New York. I had built a life with no connection to them, and I liked it that way. Then, one afternoon, an email popped up from a name I hadn't seen in years, Linda Carter. My mother. Subject line, "We need to talk. Family matter." I stared at it for a long time before opening it. The message was polite, almost cold. She said Vanessa was getting married to a successful surgeon named Brandon Tate. They were planning a large, elegant wedding in Scottsdale, but expenses had exceeded expectations. She wrote, "Given your current position and income, we were hoping you could assist us with a family loan, just $90,000. No apology. No acknowledgement of the past. Just a demand wrapped in fake concern." I didn't reply. 2 days later, another message came, this time from my father. He said they were proud of what I had become and hoped I would be willing to help them maintain the family's reputation. He called the wedding a once-in-a-lifetime event and said Vanessa deserved the best. I read it twice, then deleted it, but the third message came directly from Vanessa. She said, "I know we've been distant, but I'd really appreciate your help. You can consider it an investment in family harmony." That made me laugh out loud. I agreed to meet them, but not to help. I needed to say what I should have said years ago. We met at an upscale cafe in Scottsdale, halfway between their house and Vanessa's new condo. I arrived first and ordered a black coffee. When my parents and Vanessa walked in, they looked shocked. My mother's eyes scanned my designer heels, my leather handbag, my confidence. "You look different," she said. "I am," I replied. We made small talk for about 5 minutes before my father brought it up again. "Vanessa's wedding is in 6 weeks. Everything's nearly set, venue, catering, the band, but we're short on funds. A loan from you would ease the pressure." I looked at Vanessa. "How much?" She shifted uncomfortably. "About 90,000. It's just temporary. Nat Brandon's parents are very traditional. They expect a certain standard. We're trying not to embarrass Mom and Dad." I sat back and looked at all 3 of them. "Do you remember when I got into Columbia?" My mother blinked. "Yes, but..." "You told me to be realistic," I interrupted. "You laughed when I said I wanted to go. You said you didn't have money. But you had saved up plenty for Vanessa. You didn't think I was worth investing in." "That's not fair," my father muttered. "It's exactly fair," I said. "You ignored me, dismissed me, made me feel invisible. I had to rely on my grandparents to survive. And now that you need something, you suddenly remember I exist." Vanessa leaned forward. "This isn't about the past. This is about family." I stood up. "No. This is about boundaries. And mine are solid. You'll get nothing from me." I left them sitting in silence. For the first time, I saw real disappointment on their faces because they couldn't use me. Not anymore. A week after that meeting, I received a text from Vanessa. Just 4 words, "You'll regret this someday." I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. From what I heard through distant relatives, the wedding didn't go as planned. Brandon's parents, wealthy, old money types from Connecticut, expected a formal affair at a historic venue. But without my financial help, my parents had to cancel the vineyard reservation and shift the ceremony to a mid-range hotel ballroom. Word spread fast that the bride's side couldn't keep up with the groom's. At the rehearsal dinner, Brandon's mother apparently asked Vanessa, "So, is your sister too busy to show up or just too important now?" Vanessa snapped. She got into an argument with Brandon in front of everyone. My mother cried. My father tried to calm things down, but it was too late. The tension had already cracked their perfect image. They went ahead with the wedding, but the photos looked nothing like what they had dreamed of. The elegance they'd chased was gone, replaced with forced smiles and cheap decorations. Meanwhile, I spent that weekend in Santorini, sipping coffee on a balcony overlooking the sea. I posted one photo. No caption. Just me, peaceful, radiant, and far away. They saw it. I know they did. After the wedding fallout, the silence returned. No more messages. No fake apologies. No desperate pleas. And, for the first time in years, I felt completely free. I threw myself into work with a kind of calm I hadn't known before. Promotions came easily now, not because I chased them, but because I had become someone others trusted. I mentored young analysts, shared my story, minus the family drama, and built a reputation as someone who fought for her success. I didn't go back to Arizona. I stayed in New York, where I had built something real. My grandparents visited twice a year, and each time I spoiled them with dinners, gifts, and long walks through Central Park. They never asked for anything in return. They never once made me feel like I owed them. They were the only ones who had ever loved me for exactly who I was. One night, after a quiet dinner, my grandfather pulled out a small photo. It was from my graduation. I was in my cap and gown, smiling between the two of them. "We knew you'd make it," he said softly. "You were never invisible to us." I keep that photo on my desk at work, framed in silver. A reminder of where I came from and who helped. It was 3 years after the wedding, and I was in my office, reviewing a quarterly financial report, when I received a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Hello, Natalie? It's your father." I froze for a moment, wondering if this was some kind of prank or if he was calling with another request. But his voice sounded different, tired, strained. "We need to talk," he said. I didn't respond immediately. I had no interest in revisiting the past. Not after everything they had done, everything they had ignored. But I was curious. After so many years of silence, what could he possibly want? "I'm not asking for money," he continued. "This is about Vanessa." I leaned back in my chair, taking a deep breath. "What happened?" He hesitated, then spoke in a voice I didn't recognize. "Her marriage is falling apart. Brandon left her. There's been some financial trouble and, well, we don't know what to do." I felt nothing. No pity, no anger, just nothing. This was the same family that had left me behind when I needed them the most, and now they were asking for help? "Maybe it's time for you to reach out to her," my father added. "She's in a bad place, Natalie. She could use her sister." I closed my eyes for a moment, thinking of all the years I had spent trying to earn their love, all the years they had cast me aside. "No," I said firmly. "You made your choices, Dad. You let me go. You let her go. I'm not fixing this for you. I've moved on." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment, I wondered if he even understood what I had just said. But then he spoke again, his voice quieter, softer than before. "I just thought you might be the one to help her. You're the one who's done well for yourself." "I did it on my own," I replied, standing up. I walked over to the window, looking out over the city that had been my home for so long. "You could have helped me once. But you chose not to. Don't expect me to fix what you've broken." And with that, I hung up. I didn't look back. I didn't think about Vanessa or my parents again. My life was mine, and I had worked too hard to let them in again. Months passed without a word from them. The phone call from my father had been the final attempt, the last thread they reached out with. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I had made peace with the fact that they were never going to change, never going to see me as anything other than the person they could control or dismiss at will. It wasn't until one afternoon, as I sat at my desk working on a major investment pitch, that I realized just how far I had come. I had taken everything they had done to me, the neglect, the mockery, the rejection, and turned it into fuel. Every rejection I faced, every closed door, had been another step on my journey toward independence and success. I had the career I'd worked for, the lifestyle I dreamed about. More importantly, I had the sense of self that only came from knowing I had done it all on my own. There were no family obligations weighing me down, no toxic expectations hanging over me. My only responsibility was to myself. The phone buzzed on my desk, breaking my thoughts. A quick glance told me it was a message from George and Evelyn, my grandparents. "I'm so proud of you, Natalie. You're exactly the person we always knew you would be." Tears welled up in my eyes. The simple, unconditional love from them had always been my anchor, the only family that mattered. As I read their words again, something shifted inside me. I didn't need my parents to approve of me. I didn't need their acknowledgement. What I had with my grandparents was enough. They were the ones who believed in me, and they were the ones who helped me become the woman I was today. I closed my laptop and took a deep breath. The workday was over, but it wasn't just the end of the day, it felt like the end of a chapter. I had done everything I set out to do. I had built a life for myself, brick by brick, with no help, no handouts, no false promises. The next day, I walked into the office with my head a little higher. I knew my worth. I knew I had earned every bit of success I had. I didn't need my family's approval or their money. I was done letting them define my path. I was the one who had chosen my future, and nothing could take that away from me.